Welcome to Ravensdale Bible Academy. Today's course is Introduction to Marriage, and today's lesson is Stewardship and Budgeting. So we've talked previously about a biblical view of money. Now we got to talk about, we know how we're supposed to think about money. Money is just a tool, right? It's not our God. But now, how do we budget it? How are we stewards of it? And so we see in Proverbs 21:5, it says, "The plans of the diligent certainly lead to advantage, but everyone who is in a hurry certainly comes to poverty." And so we see this proverbial application or this proverbial insight that tells us, look, we're to be diligent. We're to have a steady pace in regards to money. There's no get rich quick scheme, and I know it's hard, especially as you're younger nowadays, because you see a lot of movie stars or athletes or CEOs of like big tech companies, and it seems like they became millionaires and billionaires overnight, but it just doesn't really work that way. And so we're supposed to have the plans of diligence. That means that we bide our time. We plant the seed. We water the seed. We have to wait for the sun. We have to wait for some time, and so like a good farmer, there's patience. We're called to provide for our family, so this is a great thing, and this is a blessing. So part of the stewardship is and the budgeting is, this is what we're mandated to do. It's a very important part of a marriage. It's a very important part of understanding what we do with money. So what are some basic principles of budgeting? Well, first and foremost, and we've kind of talked about this before, is the idea of stewardship. So we are not the sole owner. God is. God's in control. And a great example of that, we see this in Luke 16, and where God says you will reap what you sow. So you can only get a harvest if you've planted the seed, right? And so we're called as stewards to plant. We're called to dig. We're called to toil. We're called to work. But then it's God who's in control. And this is a beautiful picture because we work together. We sweat and toil, and God brings us sun. Not too much sun, not too little sun. And God brings us rain. Not too much rain, not too little rain. And then there's bugs and pesticides and insects and all these things that can come into play to destroy the crop. But God protects you. So God is ultimately the provider. He's the provision for our crops, which is why we give him first fruits. We give him first honor, first glory, first thanks, right? Knowing that we depend on him. But you will not reap a harvest if you have not sown the seed. Some plant, some water. It's God who causes the growth, not just spiritually, but physically in our crop as well. Our crop, especially of earning income. It's how a business develops. The second element we see in understanding a budget is the storehouse idea. We saw this example with Joseph in Genesis 41, and the Egyptians had 7 great, amazing years, and instead of eating everything and living high on the hog, they stored it, they saved it, they put things away for a rainy day. And so that way, when there were slower times, there was a storehouse, there was a savings, right? So good budgeting, a good steward also saves. We see this especially in directly from our first point being a stewardship, second point a storehouse, third point is actually saving, making sure we save, because in our storehouse we have to use some of that, right? But we also have to save some. We see the ants who are diligent in Proverbs 6:8. The ant works hard, he's diligent, he works all summer long, so that when the winter comes, he has saved enough to carry him over. And then finally, in our fourth S really here of our basic budgeting plan, is sacrificial giving. Sacrificially giving back. Giving, and I mentioned this before, Your budget should begin, your very first thing should be your tithe, your gift back to God, your first fruit, not your last fruit, not your leftover fruit, not the gleaning of fruit. It's your first fruit goes back to God. And look, 2 Corinthians 9, 6-7 tells us that God loves a cheerful giver. We give back to him just with a happy heart. A basic principle that you can go by in budgeting is it's the 10%, 10%, 80% rule. Your first 10% goes towards a tithe. Your second 10% goes towards savings, like the ant. The next 80% goes to your bills, your monthly bills. What do those bills look like? Maybe you've never done a budget. Maybe you don't understand one. Well, a basic budget kind of has these elements in it. You've got rent, you've got a phone bill, you've got utilities. That means the lights, the power, the water. You've got food to eat. You also have supplies, cleaning supplies, batteries, that kind of stuff. You have a car, so you have gas bills. You also have, the workshop. You need new tires. You need new oil. You also have to, you have to pay for the trash man to come pick up your trash. You have insurance, things like health insurance, auto insurance. You have entertainment. You want to, go out to eat, watch a movie. You have gifts. You buy gifts for family and friends. Maybe you have school debt of some kind. And so these are kind of your basic elements of your budget. That's that core 80%. And so you need to pay those bills monthly, on a monthly basis. And so biblical stewardship requires planning. It requires discipline. You have to be disciplined. You have to be organized. And so understand this, that it's not really our money that makes us rich, right? God helps us be rich. He helps us be poor. It's Paul talks about being content with a little or being content with a lot. And so money is not going to, and it should not make your life whole. But if you're prudent, if you're wise, then your bills will be paid for, and you will be shocked at how satisfying being a good steward is, whether you have a lot or a little. And we know how miserable people are who've only pursued money and have made tons of money and they're miserable. So money is not the source of our happiness. And so don't misunderstand this lesson, that being a good steward and a good budgeter will allow us then to make sure that we take care of our families. And if we do that, then you'll be satisfied and you'll be happy.